Hello， 大家上午好，今天是12月11号，给大家
Today is December 11th. Just to update you all, Japan's visa processing for single entry and 3-year visas has been temporarily suspended. However, the 5-year multiple entry visa is still being processed normally, but the deposit requirement for the 5-year visa is a bit higher. As for Japan, you can consider traveling to other countries for now.
On December 10th, an urgent notice from the Shandong Japan Visa Application Center stated that due to system maintenance by Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs starting on December 9th, all single entry, 3-year, and Japan Group visas are temporarily unavailable. However, the 5-year multiple entry visa remains unaffected. Further updates on the restoration time will be provided. It is understood that the suspended service refers to the sponsorship guarantee letter which many Chinese applicants must submit when applying for a Japanese visa. This document ensures that the applicant will not overstay in Japan and will return to China as required by law. The official reason for the suspension, according to Japan, is that the visa system requires maintenance to process the sponsorship guarantee letter.
日本签证的单次和3年目前是暂停受理了。
Let's talk about what's really going on. The issue right now is that the website isn't working properly. Normally, when applying for a visa, especially a tourist visa, we need an invitation letter from Japan. But because their system is down, the invitation letters can't be sent, which means the visa can't be processed. However, it's not that no one can apply, it's just that we can upload the documents manually, but manual entry into the system takes more time. Each staff member can process 20 to 30 applications a day, so that's how many Japanese visas can be issued. That's why there's a limit on the number right now. It's not that the visas can't be processed at all. As for the 5-year visa, it's not affected because it's not a tourist visa, so no invitation letter is needed, which is why it's still being processed normally.
A blogger stated that the majority of Chinese applicants for a Japanese visa usually apply for a single entry or 3-year multiple entry visa. Only a few can qualify for the 5-year multiple entry visa as the requirements are stricter. To apply for the 5-year visa, a Chinese applicant must have an annual income exceeding 500,000 renminbi or a bank account balance of over 500,000 renminbi. Therefore, by suspending the issuance of a single entry and 3-year visas, Japan is effectively closing the door for most Chinese people who wish to visit. The blogger also noted that while Japan officially cites the need for visa system maintenance as the reason for the suspension, the real cause is likely the latest wave of anti-Japan sentiment stirred by the Chinese government. This has severely impacted relations between the two countries and, in turn, their people-to-people exchanges. The blogger predicted that this disruption to tourism between China and Japan could last at least until March of next year, following the Chinese New Year. Travel agents in China handling Japan visas also estimate the same. Finally, the blogger advised Chinese netizens hoping to leave the country to act quickly, as the road ahead remains long and fraught with challenges.
各位观众大家好，我是梅大师，咱们又见面了。
Another overseas blogger stated that the suspension of 3-year and 3-month single-entry visas for Chinese tourists to Japan has been immediately noticeable to those with even a slight political sensitivity, mainly due to the recent tensions in Sino-Japanese relations. It's important to note that this suspension was initiated by Japan. The blogger recalled his first visit to Japan in 2019, when he went to Osaka and had a positive impression. He later returned with his family for another trip, noting that the service from Japan's 2 main airlines was excellent. The blogger also pointed out that if ordinary Japanese people were facing hardship, the Chinese government would encourage Chinese citizens to visit Japan and see for themselves. But now, as many people wish to go, the authorities are preventing it. Tensions between China and Japan have risen due to Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's comments on Taiwan, which touched a sensitive nerve of the CCP. Over the past month, China has not only used diplomatic and military pressure on Japan, but also made several moves in various areas, including banning the import of Japanese seafood. Japanese films have had their releases postponed, and travel agencies have halted both group and individual travel bookings to Japan. Chinese government departments have urged citizens to avoid traveling to Japan. Multiple Chinese airlines have issued notices stating that tickets for flights to Japan that meet certain conditions can be refunded or rebooked free of charge. According to the Japan Tourism Agency, Chinese tourists are the highest spenders among foreign visitors in Japan, contributing significantly to the country's economy. Despite the suspension or cancellation of flights to Japan due to pressure from the Chinese government, the ones most affected are Chinese citizens. Over time, this situation has led many to complain about the government's actions. According to a December 12th report by TBS Television, a subsidiary of Japan's news network, it has been a month since China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs urged citizens to avoid traveling to Japan. As a result of Chinese airlines suspending flights between Japan and China, incidents of forced cancellations of tickets have become frequent. However, the counters for Japanese airlines at Beijing Capital International Airport remain crowded as usual, with many people lining up to check in for flights to Japan. Recently, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs once again advised against traveling to Japan, citing the earthquake as the reason. This move is seen as an attempt to further restrict citizens' travel to Japan, but many Chinese travelers remain unfazed. One traveler concerned about natural disasters, public opinion, and policies said, "I'm not too concerned. It's no big deal." A Chinese student whose ticket was cancelled complained to the Japanese media, saying, "The impact is significant. Many people had to change their hotel bookings, flights, and travel plans, which incurred additional costs." The student expressed that political issues should not interfere with ordinary citizens' ability to travel, and Japanese media pointed out that China's retaliatory measures against Japan are affecting Chinese citizens' lives. Amid the worsening relations between China and Japan, attention has once again turned to a policy proposed in 2022 regarding the cancellation of the income tax exemption for Chinese students. Japanese media reported that the Takaichi government is considering revising the 1980s Japan-China tax agreement, which currently allows Chinese students to benefit from tax exemptions that are seen as privileges. The government is also reviewing its foreigner policies, with 4 major reforms aimed specifically at Chinese nationals. Strengthening taxes on Chinese online retailers, removing the income tax exemption for Chinese students, regulating the resale of apartments by Chinese individuals and tax evasion, and restricting re-entry of foreigners with unpaid medical fees. These measures are seen as part of Japan's strategy to increase taxes on Chinese nationals, particularly after the Chinese government's retaliation against Japan over the Taiwan issue. Reports suggest that the Japanese government is accelerating its adjustments to foreign policies. A recent article by a Chinese media outlet stated that the Takaichi government is pushing to end the 42-year policy exempting Chinese students from income tax. Over 120,000 Chinese students will lose the privilege of exempting their working income from tax, and their part-time earnings will be taxed just like other international students. Why has this special treatment, which has lasted for nearly half a century, sparked controversy? Let's take a look at its history. On September 6, 1983, China and Japan signed the Japan-China Tax Agreement. This period was considered the golden age of Sino-Japanese relations. Since then, Japan has provided economic aid, technological cooperation, and special policies to China. Both countries hope to strengthen mutual understanding through student exchanges. According to the tax agreement, funds or income received by students for the purpose of maintaining their living, education, or training could be exempt from taxation. While it seemed like a bilateral agreement, the reality was that the number of Chinese students studying in Japan far exceeded the number of Japanese students studying in China. Moreover, at that time, Japan was economically prosperous, and few Japanese students came to China to work. In recent years, this imbalance has become even more pronounced. By 2024, the number of Chinese students in Japan exceeded 100,000, while Japanese students in China numbered less than 10,000. A tenfold difference. It can be said that, from the inception of the agreement until now, the real beneficiaries have been Chinese students. As early as 2022, Senator Kimi Onoda expressed this issue in the National Diet, criticizing then Prime Minister Fumio Kishida for favoring foreign students while treating domestic students harshly. Chinese students' part-time income has no tax exemption limit. No matter how much they earn each year, they are not required to pay income tax. In contrast, countries with similar agreements with Japan, such as the United States, India, Vietnam, and Malaysia, all require students to pay taxes on their part-time income in Japan. When comparing the treatment of Chinese students in an international context, its uniqueness is evident. It can be said that this policy gives Chinese students an overwhelming advantage. This is why the Japanese government believes there is a need to make technical revisions to the treaty's content to better align with the current scale of educational exchanges and labor mobility. Although this special treatment, which has lasted 42 years, is coming to an end, there is indeed a reasonable basis from the perspective of tax fairness. However, a deeper cause lies in the changing bilateral relations between Japan and China. If the policy is adjusted, the timing is significant. Japanese media have pointed out that this is a move by the Takaichi government in its opposition to the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. Of course, the policy change is still under discussion and the specific timeline has not been announced. For years, the Chinese Communist Party has focused on strengthening anti-Japan brainwashing education within China, but modern Japan is not the same as the Japan of the past. Over the past few decades, Japan has been friendly to China, a sentiment many Chinese people feel, which is also directly reflected in the compensation offered to Chinese employees by Japanese companies. Recently, this has become a hot topic on Chinese social media. Canon, a Japanese company, officially ceased production at its wholly owned printer assembly plant in Zhongshan, Guangdong Province on November 21st. The generous compensation offered to Chinese employees has shocked Chinese netizens. Canon provided compensation of 2.1 N plus 1. N represents years of service, and plus 1 represents an additional month of salary. For employees with 10 years of service, this would amount to a 26 months of salary, far exceeding the common calculation method stipulated by China's labor contract law. Social media platforms have circulated the compensation amounts received by many employees. Some received 400,000 renminbi. A team leader reportedly received 880,000 renminbi, and others showed bank notifications reflecting 630,000 renminbi. Many Chinese netizens expressed envy and admiration for Canon, calling it a conscientious company and stating that its compensation model is an industry benchmark. One blogger lamented, "When the last car drove out of the factory gate, the story of Canon Zhongshan came to an end. What was left behind was not an empty factory, but a rare kind of dignity." Over the years, countless young people received their first paycheck, their first uniform, and their first experience of being treated with respect as a human being right here. At the day of farewell, compensation was given at the highest standard, with salaries fully paid, the process transparent and open, and every detail explained clearly. The final vehicle move, the last lunch, the room checkout from the dorms, and the transition period were all arranged in an orderly and thoughtful manner. Through these details, they showed us that even when leaving, one should still respect everyone. So, people often ask me, why are we always moved by foreign companies? I don't know, and no one has ever told me you should be moved, you should be grateful. It's just this spontaneous feeling from within. If I had to explain why, maybe it's because they're willing to go to the extreme with kindness in places unseen. And even in farewell, they still remember to treat people as people. What else is there to say? Thank you, civilization, for having visited this land. Canon is gone, but that dignity, that sense of responsibility will continue to shine in many people's hearts. A blogger pointed out the stark contrast between the treatment of employees by foreign and domestic companies. On one side, Canon, a Japanese company, gave employees a one-time severance payment of 630,000 renminbi, even offering job placement assistance. On the other side, long-term employees at a Chinese factory in Foshan found themselves in despair. The factory had to shut down due to financial insolvency, and after over a year of legal battles, the employees only received 90,000 renminbi from the auction of a car, about 699.4 renminbi per person, less than a month's salary. The blogger emphasized the difference. Foreign companies like Canon follow labor laws as a baseline and even go further to ensure employees are not disadvantaged even in tough times. In contrast, domestic companies fail to honor even discounted compensation, leaving long-time employees with just a few hundred yen for their 10 years of hard work. Canon employees can use their severance to plan for the future, while Foshan employees must struggle for over a year to receive their meager 699 renminbi in compensation, which doesn't even cover basic living costs. Why should workers' fates differ so drastically?
很多媒体报道，近日佳能公司中国
Canon not only provided generous compensation, but their legal representative also personally wrote recommendation letters for the employees. After 24 years of operation, Canon China leaves behind endless memories and heartfelt gratitude from its employees. This is the real-life version of China-Japan relations: mutual need, cooperation, respect, love, and an inseparable bond. Meanwhile, those with ulterior motives and minds full of anti-Japanese hatred are determined to destroy everything. They are the real culprits.
Some little pinks and so-called experts on Chinese social media have claimed that Canon's severance payments to employees are malicious compensation. One netizen pointed out that in the past, when the housing market was sluggish, local Chinese governments said that people with large savings who didn't buy homes were maliciously refusing to buy. This argument was deemed absurd. Chinese affairs expert Yue Shan argued that in the ongoing diplomatic dispute between China and Japan, it is the Chinese government that is both immoral and in the wrong, whether politically, economically, or in terms of people's livelihoods and education. He noted that if Chinese people are filled with hatred due to the Communist Party's propaganda, it will ultimately harm them. Yue also stated that the Chinese government's continuous emphasis on Japan's wartime crimes is an attempt to cover up its own fake anti-Japanese history and deflect attention from the current political crisis.
When it comes to maintaining prostate and breast health, you deserve a proactive approach, one that supports wellness from within. Introducing Best Doctors WBM Rex, your natural supplement to support prostate and breast health, boost immune function, and enhance overall wellness. Packed with powerful ingredients like white button mushrooms, noto ginseng, and antioxidants, WBM Rex helps maintain healthy PSA levels, reduces inflammation, and supports cellular health in the prostate and breast. With added energy-boosting Panax Noto Ginseng and immune-boosting beta-glucans, WBM Rex helps you stay active, healthy, and full of vitality. Clinically backed and made with plant-based ingredients, WBM Rex is your go-to solution for long-term wellness and balance. Gift the joy of health this Christmas with WBM Rex, because the well-being of your loved ones matters. And don't forget, use our special discount code CO2025 at checkout to get 20% off your order, exclusively for our China Observer viewers.